All right. Season 2 of the Player Development Pod. We are focusing on those who are doing the work, and I am so excited to have Dr. Lacee Carmon Johnson on. Y'all don't understand. This is the LCJ Gems. I'm ready. I know I'm going to take more notes when I edit this than y'all are that are listening. I'm so excited to have her on the pod. Really respect her, the work she's done, the person she is, and just the vulnerability. And we'll talk about that in the show, the vulnerability she gives to others. So thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Can you start off with telling us a little bit about yourself? Because if I do it, I'll go forever. So.
Well, do we have time? We have time.
Yes, we got all the time for you. We got it.
Oh, no. Well, thank you. First off, just thank you so much for the opportunity. We've been doing this work for a while, kind of walking in tandem and going back and forth, comparing notes and just talking about all the great things we've had the opportunity to do at our respective institutions and organizations. And so I value you as a person and as a friend and just the opportunity to be on here. I don't take, for granted. So I'm not going to say like when I was listening from the beginning that I was thinking if he's going to have people on then I should probably be on there. But no, but yeah, so I am, as you mentioned, Dr. Lacee Carmon Johnson. I currently serve as a manager of basketball advancement for the Toronto Raptors and kind of handle all things off-court player development for our team, along with a group with it, what we call wellness and advancement, which I just absolutely love the title and how we are reimagining what player development is. It's a little bit different from how other places and spaces may look at it, but we have an awesome group of individuals who get to work hand in hand with our players. But just, about me, like I'm one of those people, like I rent titles in the sport industry. Like what I do is not who I am, but I am a server, just by trade. Like that's where my heart is. I'm a server. I'm an educator. I'm a lifelong learner. I love all things really just having the opportunity to impact and empower others to be a better version of themselves. And so I try to always keep that at the forefront of what I'm doing as well so that I can be the best version as well. And, just thinking back on my career, a decade ago, I wouldn't have thought that I would be where I am. I didn't know where I was going to be. I will say that I've never been one of those people that had a dream job and thought I was going to end up, at some particular university doing X, Y, and Z position. I've just always been open to where God has called me. And so because of that, my path is extremely windy through the sports industry. Even when I was an undergrad, I volunteered with the Nigerian national women's basketball team. I was an AAU coach. I volunteered at Hightower High School, which
yes, fighting hurricanes. Let's go.
Yeah, I did. I was a track and field volunteer coach there. I did some event management stuff on campus. I was a tutor for middle school and elementary kids. So I have just always been someone who's kind of had my hands in a lot of different pots and trying to figure out, what was next. But the main thing has always been how can I serve and impact others? And even way back then I was doing that. And then after I left college and got into coaching for some years, doing Division I track and Division III track. And then moved into student support from an academic advising role and then student athlete development. And then getting into like the football player development, which really started to open up some doors for where I am now. So I'm just finishing up my first season. Well, I just completed my first season with the Raptors and
in the six.
Yeah, I'm in the six in Toronto. It's funny because some years ago I told a friend, like, I think I'm going to live in a different country. I really want to live by the water. In my mind, I imagine it would be a little warmer, maybe like the Bahamas or somewhere. But here we are. I do live near the lake. So I kind of knocked it out of the park with those manifestations of what was going to be to come. And my family is in a good space where we kind of have the opportunity to do that and be in a different country. Canada is different, but it's still very similar to me in the same right. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, just kind of probing the surface of who I am.
I think so. Me knowing you, I remember first time I met you because I remember you looked familiar, and I was like, and I went to U of H and I went to track meets, and it all kind of like made sense. And I was like, oh yeah, and I know you were good friends with Latoya, who went to Hightower, and she was a year older than me, and I didn't know her, but I knew her. And so when y'all would come to U of H, I'd be like, oh, that's, Latoya, she went to U of H. I mean, excuse me, Hightower, people knew her, whatever it may be. Like, she would know who Ed Jones is, but you know how it is, athletes. Mm-hmm. So I was like, and then I remember you got up to the room, in front of the room, this was at NACTA in Orlando. And I just remember the control you had over the room, and it was incredible. It wasn't like it was just this way you spoke. Everybody just connected everybody. And I was like, wow. Like, I was like, you just captured the room. And then, of course, I got into the subcommittees and the stuff we were doing on Zoom. I tell people all the time, like, before COVID hit, we already had Zoom down. Like, I wish.
We've been doing this, man.
It was crazy because, like, I remember our video coordinator, she came, Alex Nisley, she came in my office one day to ask me a question. We had our Zoom, so I turned my screen off, and she's like, what is this? I was like, this is Zoom. So we're all different places and we're communicating. And so then when COVID hit, she walked in my office like, hey, you remember that Zoom thing you told me about? Number one thing I wish I'd have took like $200 and just said, here's Zoom, here you go. Like, maybe I'd be in a different situation. But one thing that I've always, appreciated of you is like what you said. Like, I feel like I'm the same type of person. I don't have people like, what's your dream job? And I was like, I don't know. I want to impact people. Your background's a lot different than mine. There's similarities with coaching, teaching, different things like that. You do some work now talking about transferable skills and athletes transitioning out. What skill and all the stuff you've done, what skill from your time as an athlete has helped you like have success in every single arena that you stepped into?
I would say just probably two things, like the adaptability and flexibility piece of
right.
Having, sometimes you don't know like what's going to happen next and being open to that. But then also the teamwork and being an awesome teammate. I have always prided myself on being like the best teammate. Like, I'm going to be, what do you need and how can I lead from where I am and how can I serve others? And I've taken that into every role I've ever been in. I don't have to be the head coach. I don't have to be the GM of, the organization. I don't need to be the AD, but I can impact the people that are around me. And like, whether that's the student athletes that I'm, encountering or my peers that are around me. And so just that team, being an actual really, really good teammate and understanding how to work alongside one another. My second bachelor's degree is actually in psychology. And I just picked it up. I just picked it up so that because I was already done with my first one. So I was like, I need something else to do while I'm here. And we didn't have minors. So I wasn't ready to just take a bunch of elective classes because it felt like a waste of a bunch of money. So I'm like, let me get this other degree. And I feel like that's one degree that I have been able to put into use every place, just the ability to learn about folks and how to connect and just, people, organizations, all of the above, and that teammate skill from an athlete to now, like I've always been a part of a team in some capacity or another.
So if you could walk us through, so you work with the Raptors now, NBA. I think this is a year after they won the championship, maybe two. I'm so lost in 2 years. Can you kind of walk us through that process of how that went down and, just because I think one thing a lot of people listening to this, and this is what I'm kind of learning and where I am right now, like I had a friend who he hires people and he tells me, don't ever get locked into, player development or whatever, because you never know when opportunity is going to come. So if you can kind of walk through your process to be with the Raptors, that would be great.
Yeah, I think it's really it's something that I kind of like hang my hat on is just the relationships and being very intentional about those. I'm not someone that I don't need to be connected to a ton of people because of the work that we do. And even just the committee that we're in, we do have a ton of different connections. But I can go to a conference with 2,000 people and I'm okay with just connecting with 10 because those are 10 memorable relationships that like I want to continue to grow and like thrive in. And I'm okay with that. I don't need 500 business cards to take home with me.
Right.
I actually prefer not to because I can't ever remember where they are. So I think the initial conversations with the Raptors just kind of came. I got this email, and I think it was just a connection from someone else that I knew. Maybe pointed them in the direction that I was in. And I thought they would just call in and find out, like, oh, what are the things that we've kind of done at the college space, and maybe how they translate over to the professional space. And those conversations just continued and kind of shifted into like, oh, we are reimagining what the space could look like. And is this a position that you might have an interest in? Yeah, sure. But honestly, when I had that second conversation, I was more so not doing it for myself. I was doing it to see what they had available, because I know I had people who wanted to work in the pros, and I've never thought that the pros was going to be an avenue for me, at least not the NBA, maybe the NFL, because I come from the football background. So I think that would have been a little bit more in alignment with what was next. And as we continue to talk and kind of go through the process and do some presentations and just like showcase the skills and things that I would, hopefully be able to bring to the organization. Almost 10 months later, I was the candidate that they decided to go with. And at one point they decided they were going in a different direction, and then they were able to kind of shift back around. But it worked out. It worked out well. I mean, here I am now, a year later. And it's been an awesome experience to be in a much different space, to only have, 17 maybe athletes as opposed to 120 at the college space, and 120 football. That's not even including the other 400 athletes that I would have working with the other sports, doing all things student athlete development. So this has been extremely enlightening. And nice to just really know you have a smaller group to kind of pour into. And even within that group, everybody needs different things. So what you do for one doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to suffice for the other 15 or 16.
All right. So in your role, if you could talk about what your responsibilities look like and what that kind of, how you go about those day to day.
I think I like to kind of term myself as like the global leader and assist, right? But no, it's honestly, it's support. It's support for our players. It's kind of helping with the transition into and or out of our organization. It really varies by what each of our players need. We have several who are very well established from like a marketing and branding standpoint. They've done an awesome job. I mean, even just like considering their stories of they weren't, high draft picks, and they spent time in the G League, and like what they've built, not only on the court, but off the court, all the things they have their hands in, for those situations, it's kind of like, where do you need me if you need me? I'm here to support. And that might not be very much. It could just be like, you just need me to come smile and fist bump you on the way out. That's cool. Like, that's what I'm here for. And then you have our younger guys who are just coming in and trying to figure out how to navigate like what it means to be a professional, what it means to really be a person in a developmental system, which is something as a Toronto Raptor, like that's what we pride ourselves on. So we find those hidden gems and we really build into them. And you just look at the course of the last couple of years and what those players have been able to do, like coming from the G League and being, middle of the bench and now being starters. And then you have these new guys, and yes, we had the number 4 pick. And yes, he was rookie of the year. But yes, he's, still very young. He only played 1 year in college. So trying to figure out what is it that they need. And that could be everything from a time management standpoint, from, understanding just like the scheduling perspective. It's a very long season. And we have to remember that all of our college athletes, the ones who've been through the last couple of years, like they dealt with COVID, which means that they learned a different level of resiliency. Absolutely. But many of them had seasons cut in half, seasons cut short, lots of different issues that other athletes haven't had to deal with. And so once they're transferring, so to speak, or moving into the professional space, it looks different. There's a lot larger time commitment. You don't play 30 games like you do in college. It's an
Right.
82 game season, with preseason and playoffs and even off season. There's a lot of work that has to be put into that. So it varies with regard to that. But then also, partnering with our talent and strategy team on the marketing and branding side of really helping our players like figure out who they are as people and how they can use the platform that they have now to start to leverage that here, but then also set them up for the future. We had this amazing veteran who we got as a free agent this year, Thad Young, and he's just like cream of the crop in all things you wish every athlete, would be. He came in, he was a high draft pick, but he's been in the league for, I think, 15 years. And when you're in the league for 15 years, you're either, you're either cream of the crop athletic wise, or you are one amazing human and teammate together. Made a new word. And he's really, done a lot of things like for his community. He's figured out from a business aspect, like areas of interest for him. And so it's really cool to be able to like probe him for different ideas of, how can we get everyone to get into this mindset, but then also how can we connect you with our other players to dibble and dabble here, there, and the other, and just share those gems. So it's the responsibilities are, they don't look the same day to day, for sure. And I really can't say that it, even from different portions of the season, like what the focus is, because I could come in and think that I'm going to, hammer in on or hone in on this, that, or the other. And then it could be something completely different for, a week or two, just based off of maybe what happened in the game the previous week, or like how the streak is going, or, we were home for the entire month of December, which was great because we're like, yes, we can start knocking out, different appearances and things. And then COVID hit and everything was shut down.
Yeah.
And all of that was like, all these plans. Okay, so now we're going to have to postpone. We have to figure out language. How do we share this information? How do we communicate with the appropriate parties? And then how do we get things back on the rails so that when things do open back up, like we're ready to start knocking out some of these things that are on our to-do list that we need to happen. So it was a interesting year, very interesting.
I can imagine.
Lots of ups and downs. Tough personally from a transition standpoint, just coming, off of COVID and not having done a ton away from the house for the, 18 months prior. And then you get in and it's like, full throttle, like on the road, traveling back and forth, lots of hotels, lots of different cities, lots of late nights.
Right.
But it was a great experience, and one that I I look forward to just being able to build on going forward.
Yeah, I checked out your travel hacks blog. I learned a few things there. All right, so when I was a high school coach, football's been my background, and basketball was my first love, and I got bigger than most people. And if you touch people in basketball, it's a foul. So I was like, let me go play football. But one thing I loved when I coached was I coached B team basketball, and I loved it because it was 12 guys. It was intimate. Wasn't the 200 player program that I saw in high school, or like you said, you got 120 guys, and then for you at Purdue, even more athletes. Like, if you can kind of talk about how that transition back. I know you've done it before, but that transition back to going, I think with the NBA is what, 15, maybe 12 to 15?
15 to 17, yeah.
15, 17, okay. If you kind of talk about how that change going from so many athletes to, consistent faces in some cases, because the NBA is full of transactions, but if you kind of talk about that.
So when I signed my contract, and then there's some time elapsed, and then I started, I think there was a lot of transition that happened. So people that I was like trying to look up and figure out who's who, they weren't there when I showed up. And so that was different. But I remember walking in the first day and I'm thinking, like, I was getting a little overwhelmed because I felt like, man, I don't know if I'm going to, like, I got to remember all these names, not just of the athletes, but like of all of the coaches and support staff and the front office. And we were in Tampa too. So that was completely different setup. And after I spent, I think, 2 weeks in Tampa, I was like, oh, I pretty much know everyone now. Like, this is this is different. This is very different because in football, you don't get to know people like that. I mean, you're like studying sheets, you're trying to figure it out. And then even when you're watching them on the field, you have to memorize numbers too, because they have helmets
Right.
on, so you can't see. So it was a much bigger, it was a much bigger transition. And then once we started getting close to free agency, I had a little bit of a panic moment again, because I'm like, oh man, we finally got great relationships built. And what if we get new people, or what if people have to leave? And like, oh, that's a different setup coming from college. You know, there's the NBA, the NFL, like there's transactions that are made. Whereas in college, yes, the student athletes may have the opportunity to transfer, but usually if they are, you kind of know what's happening. You've been a little bit a part of the process, with supporting them one way or the other. So it's we only had one, one kind of swap from a free agency standpoint. So the season went pretty smoothly as far as just the personnel, and so it was really nice to know that it was just not this overwhelming amount of people to try to figure out on top of all of the other transition points. Grateful in that space. And then sometimes it feels like you're not doing anything because you're so used to dealing with so many people. And then now you have a much smaller group. So it's like, oh, shouldn't I be doing something? Shouldn't I have someone that I need to be talking to? Shouldn't I have some paperwork that I need to be, submitting?
Am I missing out on something?
Yeah, a little FOMO, because there's a much smaller percentage of people to support on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome. Well, before we get to the advice portion, I want to kind of talk about, some of the things you're doing outside of your role, some of the personal projects. I know I've heard people call them passion projects, different things like that. If you can kind of talk about, correct me if I'm wrong, ACE coaching.
Yes.
If you can kind of talk about that, dive into that. I read I know I commented today on LinkedIn, but your blog about, your time at the Career and Sports Forum, I would have never known. Like I was incredible just to see, I think so many times, there's so much in sports, right? Everybody wants athletes to be perfect. Like everybody's got to show up and be perfect. And it's like, it's so much to show up for people, and I appreciate your vulnerability in that, because, I know in my life, people are like, oh, Ed, you got to just go up there and do it. And it's like, whoa, can I, like, I don't, you can't just plug and play. And, and you've had athletes in your office and you've been an athlete at elite level. You understand, the hey, all right, the lights are on, let's go. But anyway, back to the overall ACE coach. I just enjoyed that blog. That was incredible. If you kind of talk about, that, what's your mission in that, and why you started it and how you want to help people.
Yeah, it's just a kind of a coaching and consulting company. So I do have the opportunity to get to speak at different events or in front of different groups. I have a huge passion for really supporting student athletes and then also young professionals and kind of helping them through their journey. So any group that is, caters to that and how they can support, how you can, or how they want to kind of get to that next level, looking at different avenues. I'm there, and I get to work alongside a couple other groups such as Athlete Transition Services. I work with Institute for Sport and Social Justice and do like some DEI facilitation and things of that nature. So I wanted to, have that opportunity to kind of pour into not just what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis with my career and my role, but like how else can I continue to broaden and put those tentacles out to touch the lives of other people. So that's kind of why I started. I think ACE stands for Accelerating, Curating, and Executing Your Dreams. And it's a play on my two boys' names, Ace and Duke. And that's how I got that. So it's very much so just like the family affair, so to speak. But a big piece of it is also just my blog that I put out each week. So I just started out kind of putting my thoughts, because I feel like, one, I do enjoy writing, and I feel like I have things to say, and I've been through, I've lived a life that maybe a lot of people don't fully know. And just being able to reflect back on some of those stories and like what I've learned from it and how it's gotten me to where I am. Like I'm very open to share a lot of that. And so it keeps me consistent. I have like this accountability with myself. Every week I want it to be able to put out a blog or some type of story. Sometimes it's things that I've had in the arsenal, and some things like it just comes because it happened in the moment. And then another cool thing is like I get to where I don't really think of it as me being a fashionista, but folks like the Work Fit Wednesday deal.
The Work Fit Wednesdays, yes.
Yeah, and
yes.
I'm
that's laced, right?
Yes, laced.
Yeah.
Because I like sneakers. I think you can wear sneakers with anything. I will put them with a dress all the time, and so that's where we get the laced thing from. But yeah, I want it to be consistent with the blog piece of it. I want it to be able to share my heart. I put that blog out a couple days ago, and I honestly haven't gone back and read it since then. So I'm sorry if there's a ton of typos in it, but I still feel like extremely vulnerable knowing that it's out there. And I've gotten a lot of private messages and text messages, and folks that are like, I feel seen, and I just appreciate your vulnerability and authenticity to be able to put that out. And it wasn't easy. And that's not the first time that it's happened. And that was actually fairly mild in thinking back on what the last probably 3 or 4 years have looked like. I mean, even on Zoom, there's sometimes I've done Zoom things and I was like crawling to the computer just trying to get there to make it work. I some things that I'm working through, got to work through with my therapist and figure it out. But I want to continue to do it, and I'm going to continue to show up, because every single time I have the opportunity to be in a space like that, if one person tells me that I have impacted them, then I've done what I was supposed to do. I mean, and God gives me the opportunity and the space to do it. So why would I tell him, no, I'm not going to do it?
Right. I think I was reading your blog. I think it's Rookie Season. I think that's the one with the 10 things. Mm-hmm. And one thing you put in is just something that I my parents raised me on, but it's something that I realized, I noticed about you in all our NACTA calls and meeting you in person and seeing you in person. You're one of the few leaders that I feel like everybody feels like they're touched by you. And of course, you can't spend time with every single person, but I admire that. And it's something I take back, like, man, I got to figure out how. One thing you shared in that was like, you never know how far a smile goes, right? One thing I love that you do on Zoom is just like, we'll be on a Zoom and somebody pops on and you're like, hey, how you doing? Like, and it's a small attention, whatever. Or if people are on early, like you touch everybody there early, and it's just like little stuff. I'm like, man, I need to do that. Cause so many times in real meetings, you show up early and everybody's just kind of sitting in there. It's like this awkward, like nobody wants to talk to anybody, or this person has this title, so they're not going to say anything to this person. And I appreciate it. I'm telling y'all, I know people are listening to this, and we probably got more listeners than we ever had because Lacee's on here. Go and the blogs and even Twitter, hashtag LCJ Gems. I just appreciate all that. All right. So before we move to the advice portion, we get all these gems. We're drowned by gems. What's the biggest thing you've learned in the role you're in now?
It's all about relationships. It is. It's all about relationships. It's all about being able to make people feel seen, feel supported, feel loved on. And that's not just with the athletes. That's with your peer counterparts. That might be with your subordinates, if you have those. And that might also be with your leaders, the folks who are in leadership. One thing with all leaders for me, it's like, how can I make your life a little bit easier? It could be something very small. Now, I'm not going to go get you coffee every day, but if I can, if I can see you at Starbucks, your card, you can grab it on the way in, by all means, go ahead. I'm not getting coffee and dry cleaning, not really my thing. But I do want to, I think just creating those authentic relationships and making people feel welcomed and loved. I know I want to feel welcomed and loved. So how can I do that for others? And, you talked about just the simple thing of having a smile. I don't always have to feel the greatest, but I can still smile at others. And I want to give the hugs too, especially when I haven't seen people. Even, sometimes with the guys, it might be a couple days. It's like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while. It's like, bring it in. bring it in, because you just don't know like how that's gonna impact others, and even just the relationship. You have to meet people where they are. That doesn't mean that they're going to subscribe to your type of communication preferences. There's some of them, I slide in the DM and like a post, or send a funny meme or something, but that might be how they communicate versus like the face-to-face. It's all about that connection piece that comes with the relationships.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And thank you for all the connection pieces for myself and so many individuals. Okay, now we're going to, y'all, I'm excited. I'm excited about the entire podcast. With this advice, we're about to get gems. Overall advice you would have for those in roles that support athletes, and then advice for those that are looking to get into those roles.
I think if you're currently in this role, two things. One, just making sure you don't take for granted in the space that we're in. There's a lot of people who want to be connected to the athletes that we work with. That could be if you were working at the high school level, you're working at the college level, you're working at the professional level. Athletics is seen as this hot commodity. And so we have the opportunities to support these athletes on a day-to-day basis. So don't take that for granted. Even at a career in sports forum, I had folks who are like, "Oh, it would be a dream for me to work for the Raptors, or it would be a dream for me to work in the NBA." And I had to kind of take a step back because I just want to support. I'm grateful for the opportunity to do this, but
Absolutely.
I have to remember, this is a dream for a lot of people who will never get the opportunity to get as close as we are. So first and foremost, don't take the opportunities that we have for granted. And then just secondly, lead in love. Always kind of put your best foot forward, your best face forward, and the support mechanisms. That's going to look different from each person. You don't have to do it like everybody else. I'm not somebody that's like, "Oh, well, this worked for them, so let me go ahead and try to jump on and do it the exact same way." No, I'm Lacee. I'm going to do it the way that I need to do it. It might look different, but I guarantee you I'll still be able to make an impact, and I'm going to own the decisions that I make in the process. So
awesome.
Lead in love. And then if you're trying to get into the role, it really is about just the connections, but you have to do the work to get there. You can't just have a dream that, I'm really good, I'm passionate, and, I really love the team, and that's why I want to support them. Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Get that, you get that email 47 times a day.
Yeah, but there's not you think in the NFL, there's 32 positions, sometimes more if a team has multiple people who are in those support positions. In the NBA, there's 30 clubs. So there's just not a ton of places. And I think Alexander Martin, a really good friend of mine who works for the Dolphins, he made an awesome statement while we were at CSF. It's in order for someone else to get into these roles, we would have to leave or we would have to move up. So you have to be intentional and find ways and avenues that you can get in. And that could be, starting all the way at internships, doing training camp, or other smaller, maybe not full-time roles that are available. But when you get in and you do good work, people notice. They will always notice.
Love that. That's what I tell people all the time, that when I was in player development, that's awesome. How do I get in player development? I was like, get in the door. Just get in the door and be great at what you do. And then, like you say, build those relationships, then walk over to that director of player development. They're going to need help, but they're going to go back and ask whoever you work for, hey, is it they want to do extra work, or do they really get after it? So I always tell people, just get in the door and work. Trust me. All right. So what's the best advice? You are a giver of tons of advice. What's the best advice you've ever received in life?
So I'm killing this 2-part thing. So I'm just going to go with it. So the first one I remember I was 25 years old. I was sitting, at this point I was coaching, but I was also working, teaching some GED classes. And so I was sitting in maybe she was the dean of the community college that I was working in. And she said, you don't have to always wear your accomplishments on your sleeve. And as a woman in sport, That one
Right.
hit me so hard because I
Right.
always have to work double the amount as the men that I have to deal with. So sometimes I felt like I needed to tell everybody what I was doing, how good I was doing it, showcase all of the results that I had. Um, and I was like, okay, I need to figure out a better way to like work this. I don't want to be like, I'm not a braggy type. It makes me uncomfortable to have to like share like, oh, what are the accolades you've got? I'm like, it's easier. It's like, oh, it's on my resume. Like you can see it. I don't have to like
Right.
actually
Right.
tell myself. But what I do now is I do keep a win list. I keep a win list, whether it's big wins
I
or
like
small
that.
wins of things that I do, because sometimes I do need to I need to remind myself, like, look, I am good at what I do. There's a reason why I
Yes.
am where I am. And while I've made the impact that I have, like I am strategic, I'm intentional,
Right.
I'm results, oriented. I can get the work done every
Right.
single time with resources, without resources. I'm going to make it work. So I
Right.
do keep my own like personal win list for that, but I don't want to be a braggy type. So I'm not going to just sit here and, like throw it here, there, and the other. I have faith that God is going to continue to provide me with the support of other folks who are around me that will speak my name in rooms when it need to be spoken. And I'm
Absolutely.
going to like hold true by that. A decade later, I still feel the same way about that. But it hurt. It hurt when she said that because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like not being humble. Like this is not good.
Yeah.
Another piece of advice I had was from a former coach that I worked for. He was a head coach, and he wasn't even speaking to me. He was actually speaking to one of the groups that I supported, but I like brought him in to talk, and he said the most important job you have is the one you have right now.
Mhm.
And so that I don't get in front of myself, like it's important to make sure I'm like pouring into what I'm supposed to be doing. And that
Right.
has been a catalyst to getting me to where I've always like landed for the next position, because when I've done great work at the place that I'm supposed to be in, I don't have to like go out and look for jobs. I've had people like come to me to talk about different opportunities. And so
Right.
be present in the moment where you are. What does God say? The Bible says like be faithful with the small and he will
Yes.
reward you with more.
Right.
That's so true. So true.
Yeah. There's those two things. I read your blog. One thing I love about you is your confidence. Like, it's like, I'm going to get the work done. And I think there's a lot of people who don't honestly feel that way. And I don't have a problem with that, because it's like, look, you brought me in here. I'm going to get it done. Like you said, resources, not whatever, coach, whatever you need, we're going to get it done. Just tell me what you need done. I'm going to get it done. And then, like you said, also, like, just be great at what you are. Like, I know I got a lot of questions from coaches. How do you transition from high school to college? What did you do? I was like, I wanted to help the kids at Hightower High School. That's all. And Tom Herman, I did not know that this man was researching me. He was retweeting some stuff I was retweeting. I didn't think nothing of it. This man was researching me because he found out from other players at other schools who were like, hey, that guy's doing something great for those players that I didn't even know. Like, it was crazy. And I think back what you said, one of my favorite Bible verses is don't despise small beginnings. That small task you're given, that small leadership, okay, you're leading two people right now. Lead those two people, because it may be 200 people in 10 years, And so I totally agree with that. And hey, y'all, I'm telling you, you better get your pens out. So I like practical wisdom also. If you can give like a practical nugget that you've used where you work for people. So like for me, one thing I tell people is like, if I can go back to my first year doing player development, is take notes on every meeting, scan every document, because it's cyclical. You're going to come back to this next year and you can see what you did right or wrong, whatever it may be. So what would that be for you?
Oh, well, I too write everything down. I have ridiculous amounts of notes in my phone. At 2:00 in the morning, I will wake up and I can plan out a whole program. That's my brain works probably the best from like that 2 to 5 block, which is not ideal for my sleeping patterns. But for the longest time, I would just like think it and then I go back to sleep. And now I've learned to actually start like writing those down and like planning out the things that I need to. But also just like intentionality, if you're trying to get FaceTime and build relationships with others, like what are you doing to intentionally connect with them? That might mean, sending them a text message. It could mean, like being in the same spot after the game, so they know like where to find you. It's just those small things, and people notice when things shift, especially when you're in a space where you thrive in structure. Like when that structure is off, it's a little bit different. But just like the strategy behind programming, I don't believe in quantity over quality. I believe in quality over quantity.
Yes.
And even in the role that I'm in right now, if we do any kind of program, I do not walk in thinking that this program is going to be the savior for all 15 of my guys. I don't.
Right.
If I can affect 3 of them positively and open the door for some conversation that might steer us in a different direction, it was worth it. Because then the next time we might hit 3 more. And then the next time I might hit 3 more. And guess what? Over the course of the season, we're going to have like made some shifts, opened some doors, connected people, put them in positions in which they can succeed in ways that exist outside of the basketball court. And that's a check mark, and that's a win. And so it's not about doing what I think makes sense. It's also about listening to them and what they think makes sense, or seeing stuff. I see like my guys, they like play video games. Okay. So like I need to figure out like how we can make this work and how we can continue to push this, this finding different hobbies and whatnot. I don't know anything about video games, but I have sons, and I'm sure I have one that does love video games and the other one. So if that means I need to sit down there with him and try to play some video games or hear him talk about it so that I have a little bit better verse about it. But it's being intentional about the things I'm hearing and then putting some strategy behind how to make the connections for the folks that need to.
Gotcha. Okay, last question for advice. And this is more question I love to ask people. You're a person who cares for a lot of people. You got your family, you got the team, you care about the staff. How do you take care of yourself?
Well, I have kids, so as much as I would love to sleep, sleeping isn't the thing that I could get the most of, but you best believe I'm going to try. Okay, I'm going to try. If that means I'm going to take a nap when the baby takes a nap, I'm taking a nap when the baby takes a nap. But no, I enjoy just going for walks. And especially like I live close to the lake. So water is a calming source for me. And there's sometimes I'll just go sit out on the rock and I'm just like listening to it. I have my headphones in, so it looks like I'm like busy and occupied. And so other people don't, bother me. But I'm really just like taking in the nature that God has like put out here. And it is very like calming to my soul. Walking just helps to kind of, it gets my brain going and kind of flowing. So, provides me with the space to have really cool, innovative ideas for, whatever that might be. And then I enjoy just like reading and listening to other people's stories. So those are ways that I kind of like decompress, but then also ways that I continue to develop who I am. And then I write all those things down. I write them down. Like, I got a dream journal, like things that I might have seen in my sleep, or things that like God, I felt like put on my soul. And there's a reason why he put this there. So let me just write it down, because you just never know. 2 years from now, I might be sitting somewhere and I'm like, I feel like I've been here. It's almost like a deja vu, but it's because that this was ordained over my life before I even knew it. Yeah.
So it's like, it's interesting because I went on a walk before this and we kind of shared this pre-show. But like, I'm listening, I got music playing and like, it goes to Maverick City, Gyra. And it's like this part, and it's like, if he watches over the, lilies and the sparrow, and like, I'm looking at these flowers and this bird flies by, and it's just like, getting in nature, just like this creation, and kind of like sets you back, like, wow, like there's this incredible plan and I'm a part of it. Like, you're using me, God's using me to help others in this plan. And I'm with you. Like, as much as I was outside in football, I've never taken advantage of walks as I do now, and just how clearing it is. And I'll get a note card, right? And just, okay, oh yeah, this, that. So the walking part has been fun. It is definitely therapeutic for sure.
It gives me appreciation for all of the greatness that God has bestowed upon us. Like, I love to be able to see like this awesome sunset, I will stop and like take a minute to myself and just be like, God, you are so awesome. man,
Right.
you are so awesome. And I was just frustrated about X, Y, and Z, but you showed
Absolutely.
me this and you got me together,
Absolutely.
and now I can move on to
Absolutely.
whatever the next thing that I have.
Absolutely. Nature just like I was in one day just sitting in my house frustrated and our tree was blooming. You got to see the bees coming and the birds and stuff would fall off the tree and the bees would eat. And it's just like they're provided for and they're living their life. Here I am frustrated about stuff and they're just, they know it's coming. You know, they're seeing the faith of animals and nature. It's just like, it's incredible. All right. So now we're moving to our rapid fire portion. Now I say rapid fire, but you can take your time because I like to hear. So I'm going to ask 7 questions. She does not know the questions. I said the other ones, but not this one. So the first one would be, what are you reading right now?
I'm listening to. I'm a big Audible girl because I do like to walk and, you got to multitask. So I'm in a book club with some women that I met on Twitter, and it's been awesome. So we're reading Minda Hart's The Memo, and I am actually listening to her second book, Right Within, on Audible. So I'm kind of going back and forth with those, and then I just finished how to day trade for a living because I've recently gotten into like day trading and like stocks and investing, and it's really cool. Again, I'm a lifelong learner, so it was something else for me to kind of dabble in.
Nice. I like that. All right. What daily discipline are you working on?
Ooh, daily discipline. Oh, I got a new one. I'm trying to drink like 8 ounces of lemon water each morning before I have my coffee. So
Gotcha.
I have recently started that. I think I'm probably about 2 weeks in. I'm really big on, like I know 21 days, like to create a habit.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm pretty close to kind of getting there. And while I was in Indianapolis for CSF, like I was having a hard time tracking down limits and stuff. So I'm like, well, I'm going to at least have this water, every morning, even though it doesn't taste like what I want it to taste like, but to stay on track and be disciplined with it. That's been a big thing. And that's honestly something day trading is teaching me is like to really like hone in on the levels of discipline. Like I'm a little bit of a squirrel sometimes. I'll be here and there. I want to do all these different things. And it's really making me focus on like very small moves.
You could do a whole podcast on discipline and travel with the NBA season. You could
Look, hit me up in 6 months. I'll come back for in season 3 and we can do this again.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Someone gives you $25 for lunch. Where are you going in Toronto?
Ooh, in Toronto. If I'm home, I want to go to Red Panda. It's a Thai like fusion restaurant that's near my house. If I am at the facility or downtown, I'm going to School. It's a place called School. It is like the breakfast brunch place, and it is, oh my goodness, it is so good. So good.
Okay. All right. Okay. What about in Beaumont?
If I'm in Beaumont, I'm going to Raising Cane's. I'm not even thinking twice about it. And then I'm probably going to go back that night and use the rest of the $25. And I'm getting an Arnold Palmer while I'm there.
Gotcha.
One day I'm going to own a Raising Cane's. Y'all hear it. Okay. So if anybody can help me get to that space to where I need to talk to the right people, like, let me know.
It's like that? It's like that for real?
I love it. And I've been talking about it for the longest. I did another podcast with Tim Bryson, and I am now, future Raising Cane's owner.
I love it. I love it. $125. Same question for dinner. Where are you going?
Ooh, in Toronto? I just ate at this Jamaican restaurant last week called Chubby's, and it was really good. And then there's another like Caribbean restaurant called Honey. But for $125, I can feed me and my family and the family next door. I don't need to spend a lot of money on food. Like, you don't have to take me to no fancy steak restaurant. I don't even like steak.
Right. I like that. All right. If you could join a band or music group, past or present, which one would it be?
I would say TLC because the fits. Come on now. And I have like this. I like Moonlight as a rapper. kind of,
Right.
sort of, maybe not really.
Okay.
But I'll write bars every now and then, and I do know the waterfalls rap. So
right. So reading your blog, you started off at CSF with bars, correct?
I did. It
Nice.
is video recorded, but I will not share it.
Okay, you will not share. Okay, I was gonna say we gotta
Because
find it.
if I need to repurpose it for another intro somewhere.
That's true. That's very true. Very true. All right, if you're in a movie, who would co-star in a movie with you? Action and comedy.
Who would co-star with me? Action and comedy. Oh, I don't. This is kind of an unfair question because I am not a. I think the TV watches me more than I watch it.
Wow.
So, yeah, like I heard everyone talking about This Is Us, so I was like, oh, I should probably go and actually like watch it. So I started it, and then I got to like season 4, and I kind of like put it on pause. So I'm not. I don't know, and I'm not a pop culture person either. So I could walk by somebody and like have no idea who they are.
Gotcha.
All the time. So I'm gonna have to prefer that one.
Okay. Well, we were talking about an actor. Craziest moment I ever had working a football camp at Tulane. I'm at the registration table. You know, like you said, I'm just trying to, I'm a high school coach trying to get my foot in. I'm cleaning up the registration table, and his mom says, "Oh my goodness, there's Denzel Washington." I'm like, "What?" I look up, and he's got like the whole like I had a smile and then like point, and he's gone. They were filming some movie in New Orleans, and then right after that, Bob Marley's son walks up because his son actually played at Tulane, and his father was at Miami. So it was just like in literally like 10 minutes. I was like, "This is crazy."
I did run into Nia Long in the restroom this year, and
wow,
yeah, and I was just like, "Wow, you are amazingly beautiful."
right?
Like, you see people on TV, and they're supposed to be put together because they're on TV, but like in person, she was awesome. She just has the sweetest demeanor. In my mind, she's now my friend.
Right. Yes. And then the last question. Oh, sorry, we got 2 more. What sport do you wish you played growing up?
I wish I played field hockey.
Nice.
I was first exposed to it during my initial year of grad school, and I was like, man, I would have been really doggone good at this.
Right.
I wish I would have I had never heard of field hockey before I got to the Northeast, so it was really cool. And I know a couple of people now who like played in college, and I'm like, man, I think I probably could have been pretty solid at it.
Nice. And this question is from Tim Bryce, and I kind of took this one. How can we support you? How can we follow you on the socials, support your website? If you could just give all your information to the people.
Yeah, so my website is ACED Coaching, ACED coaching.com. And you can get to all of the things there. I will get this podcast linked on there as one of the resources.
Yes.
Once it gets out, it gets put out. But I also, I have my blog, and it's not a traditional titled blog. It's called Gems. And I put out at least 2 each week. One that's maybe some story reflection that I have, and then another that is like my personal work fit, which I also post on all of my socials as well. So on Twitter, Mrs. Coach Lacee. And then on Instagram, you can find me at Lacekins. I know like it goes against all things like branding, where you should have the same thing across the social platforms. But I've had these since all of these platforms were created. Facebook, I was like the first class of Facebook. So yes. I'm not changing those things. I didn't know about personal branding and all that stuff back then. I like the titles that I have, and I'm going to keep them. I'm sticking with it, and it is what it is.
It reminds me of the Nick Saban quote. I ain't changing, so quit asking.
Right. Look, this is where we are.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending time. Once again, I'm honored to have you on this platform. I look up to you. You're like, I don't have, I got little sisters. You're like my professional big sister. And so it's great. Thank you so much for what you share for myself, others, and all you all that are listening. I know you've been blessed by this. So that's it. That's the show. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you having me. And I can't wait to hear all of the future guests for season 2. You're doing some awesome work, and I appreciate you providing a platform for the space that we hold in this industry.
Awesome. Thank you.